and welcome to GenFriends. I'm your host, Cheri Hudson Passey from Carolina Girl Genealogy. And we've got a wonderful special guest and this fabulous panel that joins me that I'm so grateful for them. We've got Mary Kircher Roddy from MKR Genealogy. Hi, Mary.
Hello there.
I'm so glad you're here. We've got Dan Earl making faces at us, our family history guy. Hi, Dan.
Hello.
Hello. And then we've also got Melissa Barker, our archive lady. Hi, Melissa.
Hello, great to be here.
We may have some other panelists hopping in as they get off of other meetings and things that they have tonight. So, but we are so excited to have our special guest. We have Diahan Southard, who is here to talk to us about her PBS show. And I want to make sure I say it the right thing. It's your DNA Secrets Revealed. So fun to watch you do this show. How cool is that? How did you even get involved in this?
Well, it's funny. Like, I know that I get, I don't know, periodically a few times a year, somebody will fill out the contact form on my website and they're doing some such show or something. And most of the time they're shows that I'm just not interested in being involved in. A lot of them want to do sensational, who's your daddy kinds of shows where they surprise people and, you know, get their reaction, and I'm just not, it's just not my thing. And so I usually just kind of politely decline. There've been a couple times where I've consulted or, helped with somebody's book or, something like that. So this was just one of those inquiries. They said it's actually a contract company that works independently, but they contract with PBS. And so they kind of introduced themselves and told me a little bit about their show, and it sounded good. And so I was like, sure, I'd love to hear more about your show. So we jump on a Zoom call and they say, kind of explain what they're doing. I explain what I do. And they're like, yeah, we'd love to interview you as an expert in our show. I was like, great. So they sent a video guy to my house and we recorded it. And it was fun. It was really fun. And the more I talked to them, the more I was just like, yeah, I think this kind of feels like the kind of show I would make if I was going to make a show. It's just stories, right? It's stories people that have had some experience using and having DNA testing have an impact in their families. And really fell in love with it. And I was just so glad to be a part of it. And then fast forward a couple months and I'm actually in Moab, Utah. We had just gotten off a river run ride with the whole family and we're all just beat tired and hot. And we're sitting outside this diner waiting for food. And of course, my teenagers are with me and everybody pulls out their phones, because it's been 40 hours or something.
I know. Whoa.
I'm just at the table, everybody's got their phone out. And I was like, all right, fine, I'll check my phone. So I pull out my phone and I'm just looking through my email and there's an email from the producer and he said, hey, we actually would like to approach you and have a Zoom call about you being the host of the show.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, you guys. I was like, everybody put down your phones right now. That I just got. And and so it was so flattering. They said that they had, they saw the interview tape, they showed the interview that they had done to PBS and said, hey, we think she should host. And PBS was like, for sure, let's have her host. And so
cool.
So from then on, I could be a lot more involved in the project. And so I had one of my clients is actually in the show. That's super fun. Pamela Cromwell, she's in the show. We got featured, so that was really fun to see one of my peeps in the show. And then they would send me the script and little clips of some of the stories, so I could see kind of what was going on. And they just said, here's a script, write it, re-edit it, whatever you want to do. And they've done a really good job starting out, but I was able to kind of go back in and be like, I would say this, and I want to say this, and right. And that was really fun to be involved in the script and what was said. It was just such a fun adventure, such an honor. And they were such good people, and good people make good things.
Sure. Well, you're always so upbeat. I mean, everybody knows your website is your DNA guide. I mean, so, and every presentation that you give is so upbeat and so friendly. And so you were the perfect person to do this, to talk about these different clips. And I think it was interesting because, there's a lot of people out there that are still very wary about DNA. And so I think this really is going to help people go, oh, okay, I see what it can do for me, especially with the health component that was featured so much in this 1 hour program that you did. It just, I'm thinking, wow. And they started talking about the future and how maybe perhaps down the road, we can start doing all these preventative measures because we've taken these DNA tests for our health, and we can maybe, check for things maybe that we wouldn't have checked before. And like people were talking about, we could, our diet, make sure our diet is healthy because we know we could perhaps come down with this disease or this condition or whatever. And I'm thinking, I never even thought about it that way,
Well, I mean, I feel like, I'm a big fan of like, everything's organized for a reason, and you meet people and different contacts come into your life to help you at certain points or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so interesting because as part of my involvement with the show, I was involved in helping them try and figure out what is the free gift with the donation, because this is airing during PBS's pledge drive, right? And so they're airing part of the show, and then it cuts to me talking with somebody about family history and how everybody should get involved, right? And the goal is to raise money for more PBS shows like this, right? And so as we're talking about what should the free gift be, of course, we can give your DNA guide products, but then what else is going to kind of round out our gift? And so we had brought in My-Heritage as a partner. We brought in The Search Party, which is another company that I'm doing with Janet Havorka and Krista Cowan. And so so we were like, great, let's do that. And then, I don't know, we got really far down the road when it kind of hit me like, wait a second, we don't have a health component to the gift. And so we're going to talk about health, and there's no health component to the gift. And just a few weeks before that, I had been talking with Diane Loosely. I don't know if you guys know her. She's she retired from Family Search about 1.5 years ago, maybe, or so. And so I had worked closely with her at Family Search doing a couple things. So like we knew of each other and we'd worked together. She had sent me an email telling me about this really exciting project that she was a part of called Family Forward. And she's like, I'm going to be in Salt Lake and the lab is in Salt Lake. And would you like to come up and find out what we're all about? And I was like, sure. And so I'd gone up and met with a bunch of really passionate people about this. They're calling it Family Forward. And what they've got 2 initiatives. One is to try to help DNA test underrepresented populations. Because I mean, the reality is right now, DNA testing is great for me because I have Western European origins. But if you don't have Western European origins, there's still huge gaps in what DNA can tell you, both in the ethnicity and in DNA matching, right? And so their goal is to help these underrepresented populations be represented, not just in genetic genealogy, but also in health, right? Because all the things we're learning about health are very based on your heritage, right? On your family. And so if they just don't have the data, they can't help you. Right. And so it was super exciting to talk with them about this. They also have another kind of side initiative about infertility and autism and how our DNA and our health and our diet is interacting with those things. That's kind of a little bit separate, but they're kind of related anyway. And so I had just met with them like 3 weeks before that. And then I start looking at our gift and I'm like, we're missing something. And I was like, wait a second, Family Forward has a health component. Like they have a panel whereby you can submit DNA test results you've taken anywhere and they can run a health report for you. And I was like, they'd be a great partner. So like, seriously, like last minute, I'm like emailing the producer, emailing Diane. And I was like, hey, can we like get everybody together? Anyway, and so we kind of dumped that in the last minute. And I'm just like, I just am so amazed at how things just come together like that. Like I haven't seen and talked to Diane in 1.5 years, 2 years. And then all of a sudden, she comes up into my life again. And then it's like the perfect time to make this additional service available to more people. It's just, I don't know. It was really cool.
That is cool. You were talking about that and I was thinking about the story that y'all shared about the lady that they were switched at birth and they discovered, she did her DNA and the matches, she thought she was Irish and she was getting people matching her, the Irish, and said, no, I'm not Irish. And so she learned she had a whole Jewish side to her that she didn't even know about because they were switched at birth. I mean, one of those things you think would never really truly happen, but
that happens in the movies, but no, it happens to real.
Yeah. And so she had to learn a whole new health kind of code. We know, what should I look for that I never had thought to look for before? And what do I tell my doctors now? What should they be looking for? So how interesting. I thought that was so interesting, and something that, we can use if we just take advantage of it to help with our health. And then to tell our children, she was able to share that with her children and let them know, because we have this DNA, because we have this ethnicity, we may be predisposed to things we never thought about even checking for. So I thought that was a really interesting story.
Yeah, I love, one of the other things I love about the show is that I feel like a lot of other shows are talking to people like at the moment of discovery or really soon after they've discovered, and it just hasn't had time to like sink into their lives and like become a part of them. And I just love how all of these stories are not immediate. This is years later for some people, and it's like this, it is still impacting my life. Like this is long lasting, and I love that part of this, that it's not some curiosity that you like satisfy and then it's over. This learning about your family affects you for the rest of your life, and I love how that comes through in the show too.
Exactly. And I think all of us on this panel, we've taken DNA tests, right? Everybody here has done their DNA. Are there anybody on the panel have a something that they found out with their DNA that they weren't aware of? Just curious. Just curious. I mean, go ahead, Dan, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, my ancestors were boring, serial monogamists, just nothing out of the ordinary, nothing crazy. It was as expected. It was mildly disappointing. like I hoped for like stories, like to be able to share, and like, as a genealogist and as a genealogy speaker, like I wanted to have stuff to talk about, but it's like, well,
it's a story, Dan.
How boring my ancestors are.
That's a story.
They all married honest partners, and nothing ever happened weird. There's nothing. But my wife was able to get in touch with an aunt that she was not aware of until she was in her 40s. My wife, not the aunt. And so that was like our only kind of interesting thing that happened. But otherwise, it's been relatively boring thus far. So
My cousin, my mom's sister couldn't have children, and she adopted 2 daughters. So, and one of my cousins did DNA testing and found her biological mother had passed away, but she has 2 sisters. And so she met the sisters, and one of them got off the airplane wearing the same outfit that my cousin was wearing. Yeah.
Oh,
wow. Yeah. And I mean, they look alike. They just, and she didn't get along great with her sister that she grew up with. But her biological sister, I mean, they're like best friends now. And her sister moved from San Diego to Sonoma County. I mean, like a week after they met. So that was, it was really neat.
That's great. Melissa, you got anything?
Well, I'm one of those weird ones. I have not taken a DNA test.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, you haven't.
No.
Oh.
My husband has, actually, and he's not even interested in genealogy, but his came back typical what we thought it would be. But no, I haven't. And I don't really know why, other than I don't have what I would, my opinion is, I don't have any brick walls that I would need DNA to tear down. I mean, it's been pretty easy research for me. And plus I'm an archivist. I deal with paper, and so I don't know, the DNA stuff, I've missed that boat learning about it. I'm fascinated by it, and I get questions all the time about, can we test, envelopes that we have in our records? Can we test, because I have locks of hair in our collection and things like that. So I get those questions all the time. But what I wanted to ask Diane, though, is that do you think that this will turn into something more? That, I know that you were doing it maybe for this promotion for the PBS, and by the way, I'm a huge PBS supporter, and I love their programming, and I think we need to keep all of our PBS stations going. But anything, maybe on the horizon that's going to be more out of this?
I hope so. There's nothing set yet. This producer that I worked with, like I said, he has his own kind of company, and so he contracts with PBS, but he does other work too. And I feel like I said, I feel like our values were really aligned, and that he has a lot of great ideas. He's like your classic producer guy. His name is Bob, first of all. Okay? Second of all, he's got like this kind of wild hair, and he's always like, well, I'm like, do you realize you're like so being like cliche right now? And like hilarious. And he's super passionate and, you know, like artsy, you know, anyway. So I love Bob. And so I feel like we could work together on something else in the future. I feel like if a project comes up, I think he'll keep me in mind for it.
That's great. How long did it take overall to do the whole project?
Oh, I don't know when they started, but they contacted me in, what was that? April of this year, April 2022. And so they had already like, you know, gone through the whole pitch stage. It was already a real show with PBS. They'd already had a few people kind of in the docket that they wanted to interview and tell their stories. And so it was already pretty far along before I even talked to them. So I don't know when they started it, but I would assume at least a year.
Yeah.
Interesting.
One of the stories that touched me was the two and the African American and the white guy that connected because through DNA and through the history of slavery and, you know, descendants of an enslaver and the enslaved, because I am a descendant of an enslaver, and I've been able to connect with descendants of the enslaved through DNA and through the paper trail and all that. So I loved that story. And I've got one person that's missing from the panel tonight. We are related somewhere. Shelley Murphy and I are related somewhere. We're trying to figure out where through that, you know, type of scenario. And so I loved that story and how they're stayed friends, and they're shocked that they were so cute because they were like shocked that they had been able to stay friends through finding this out. But I was gonna, and they went to all these different places where their ancestors had lived, which I thought was so wonderful. But this quote I wrote down because it just touched me. It says, "You walk differently when you walk where your ancestors have been." And I thought, oh my gosh, that is so true. You do walk differently when you are walking where they've been. So I thought that was a very sweet connection, and it hit home to me because I've had those same kind of connections where we're helping each other research. Yeah. So I loved that one. And I was going to say too, we talked about the different things that DNA have helped us discover. And I think it was almost a year ago, and I'm still waiting to hear back from some people. I had a great grandfather who decided to go missing. Different stories about, and the panel knows about this story, but there's all these rumors, you know, he took off with the family money, or he was killed by a storm that came through and his body was never discovered, or just on and on and on. Nobody knew. His wife actually went to court and declared him legally dead because she needed the insurance money and she hadn't heard from him for 7 years. Well, guess what? I now know where he went because of DNA. He went to Georgia and he started a new family. And one of those descendants took a DNA test. And so now, but I've yet to, you know, I've reached out, but I don't know that they know that he had another family. So there's, you know, you just never know what you're going to find. And you've got to be prepared that you don't know. You know, you've got to, and I know most DNA people say, specialists say, don't take the test if you're not prepared for what the results may show you.
Mm-hmm. So true.
Yeah. So, yeah. Did you have a favorite story that was, I know you said one of your clients was on there, so that's really cool.
So I'm kind of biased to Pam's story.
Yeah.
But I also just loved, I love the story of the mother and daughter, and how you got to see them on that cell phone video, like meeting in Hudson.
Yes.
And they lived. Oh, lost Dan.
Dan. Oh, he'll come back if he can.
They moved all the way across the country from New York to California. It's kind of like what you were saying, Mary, like it's worth it, right? To like relocate your whole life to like connect with someone that you've been missing for all these years. And I just thought that was amazing how powerful that connection was for them, that they didn't want to miss another day together.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Sometimes it doesn't necessarily work out that way. My mom was married before she married my dad, and they had one child together. Her first husband passed away. And her first husband was born to a single mom and raised by his grandparents, unbeknownst to him at all, that they were biologically related. I don't think he learned until he was in his early 20s that the woman that he thought was his adopted mother was actually his grandmother. But so I was able to use DNA and figure out who my brother's biological grandparents are. And the guy was a jerk. I mean, that, and that's what happens. I mean, you knock up a girl and you don't stand up for it. My brother's very, very honorable, and he just wanted nothing to do with that guy or anything about even the honorable, ancestors in that family. Like, no, so.
Yeah,
Well, that is true. It doesn't always work out, right?
it does.
Yeah.
It does
And
not.
that's okay too.
Yeah, and that's great advice though to give that unless you're ready, don't take that step unless you're ready, because you just don't know what you're going to find. And I'm reminded, and I cannot think of the guy's name that wrote the book about finding out that his father was not his father. Was it Bill something? It's
not clicking. in my head.
Okay. Well, anyway, he wrote a book about the fact that he'd done genealogy for all these years and went to like Scotland and everything. And then he did a DNA test. His cousin asked him to do one or something, and found out that his father was not his father.
Mm.
Is that The Stranger in My Genes?
Yes, that's it.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Dan. Yes. Yeah.
And, and it's like, you don't know what you're going to find out sometimes. Sometimes like, Dan, boring, but others, may find out
So many
it's
facets
not
of
so
my
boring.
life. It's boring.
Do you see, Diane, more and more of the DNA companies doing more help things, or do you think it's just going to be a specialized?
That's so funny that you asked that, because all the DNA testing companies have tried a health product and they've all failed, I guess, because they pulled their product, except for 23andMe, where that's their product. But Ancestry's tried one, MyHeritage has tried one, and I don't know, I'm not privy to their back end conversations, but they're not offering it anymore.
Well,
I don't know. It's so interesting, because everybody's interested in it, and yet is nobody or like, I don't know.
Well, 23andMe had a more robust report when they first came out, and then they pulled back on it, it seems like, and now it's not quite as.
Yeah, they had to. That was FDA cracking down. And so there could be some of that, just that they can't really say the things that they want to say because of regulations. So I don't know, but so going back to this Family Forward health report, like I was really impressed with it. Like I was interested in it. It's a lot more diet and exercise based than like 23andMe's Parkinson's disease and breast cancer. Like they don't do that stuff. It's more lifestyle DNA testing stuff, which is interesting. Of course, with all this stuff, it's still so new. The science is so new, and there's still so much kind of interpretation, complicated, so many factors. And so I don't know, it's really interesting. I do think that personalized medicine based on you exactly is in the future, like heavily, definitely. But how fast we'll get there and what it will take to get there, I'm not sure. We need some better tools. We need some advancements, I think, to happen in science and DNA. There's still a lot we don't even know about DNA. So there's a lot we can learn still that will for sure impact this industry going forward.
That's really interesting. I am interested in the medical part. I mean, now that I've done the DNA for my family history, it's like I went back and looked. Oh, Oh, it's not. I don't see everything that I saw before, because right after I watched it, I thought, oh, I don't remember. What did they say about Alzheimer's? What did they say?
Yeah.
But it's not there anymore, and I'd have to upgrade to get it. So, but that's okay, But I wonder too is how accurate, and we kind of talked about that, how accurate those things are, because I think for some people it might scare them, and it's not ever going to really happen. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you have the information, and it's good to be able to be on the lookout for that and think, especially for breast cancer. I mean, that's a big one, and I think those have proved to be pretty accurate. That at least you have the gene, and so some of the preventative measures that you're gonna. But to say that you might be predisposed to like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or something, I mean, you just aren't going to know that until, it happens. So, and it may never happen. So that's kind of hard. And does it just scare people?
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? Is it good information, or does it just scare people?
No, it's
That-
a good
Yeah.
It's kind of like, again, don't ask the question if you don't want to
You
know
don't
the
want to
answer.
know. Exactly.
I uploaded my results to 23 or to whatever a help thing. And I don't remember everything that they said, but one of the things that was a propensity toward alcoholism,
Oh,
which really, given the family I came from, was no surprise. But might not have, the news might have served me a little bit better in some of my younger years, I will say, we'll just leave it there.
right. But there is, I think, Mary, what you're talking about, I've seen with several people where somebody can tell you, or you can observe for yourself, yeah, my family has this issue or that issue or whatever. But you still somehow, I feel like we all kind of feel invincible, especially when we're younger.
oh,
And
sure.
but seeing it in your DNA, it like powerfully hits you, right?
Yeah.
It encourages change on a greater level than any other kind of gathering of information does.
Yeah. I've got a lot of Irish ancestry, and I'm pretty sure that's where that came from.
I think so. Lots of years ago at Roots Tech, I was at my booth, and a lady came up to talk about health. And this was years and years ago still, so we had very little at that time. And I think it's still available. There's a website called Prometheus where you can.
That's the one I did with.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
they have a lot of stuff on Prometheus, and it's all it's peer reviewed. It's good science. It's just like the report is not like super friendly and accessible. You kind of
right. Yeah.
or whatever. But one of the things that they offer are your sensitivity to certain kinds of drugs. And so, like, for example, warfarin is a blood thinner, right? So when my dad was going in to get his hip replaced, he had to go to like 5 blood draws before he got his hip replaced, so they could figure out what level of warfarin they could give him so he was thin enough but wasn't going to bleed all out, right? And so it was like, man. And so then, like, after he tells me this, like after the whole thing, I put his stuff in Prometheus, and sure enough, he's actually really sensitive to warfarin. And so they start their normal dose. It's like, whoa, that was way too much. And so then they bring it down. But if I'd been able to tell them he's sensitive, they would have started way lower, right? And you wouldn't have had to do 5 blood draws. So anyway, I was at Roots Tech, and this lady comes up and we start chatting about Prometheus. And she tells me that her daughter was just having like seizures, and nobody could figure it out. And of course, there's lots of seizure medications because there's a lot of reasons you have seizures. And so they were just on this really long road, she felt like, to like figure out how to help her daughter. And I was like, well, you could try Prometheus. They do like list some seizure medications on their website when you put her DNA results in. So she did the whole thing. She had her daughter tested somewhere, and then she imported the results. And months later, I get this email from her, and she's like, you changed my life.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
The Prometheus report said this is the drug she needs.
Wow.
Seizures are gone.
Oh,
Wow.
Like, it was super powerful. I was like, wow, I can't believe that worked. So like, there are times, I think, even now in the rudimentary tools that we have, that if you are looking and you need a specific answer, sometimes you can find that specific answer.
And so are doctors, are they?
That was gonna be my question.
Yes, yes. Are they, if you bring them that printout, are they, open to looking at that?
I think most of them are. Mhm.
My question would be, do you know of any doctors that are suggesting that their
Ah.
patients do this so that they can get that report?
It's a good question. There's definitely certain conditions and certain treatments that are so well known and proven that doctors are like, you need to run this panel, and they do it like not through you tested ancestry and upload to
Yeah.
right? Like they have a real
Right.
like that they can do. And so those are becoming more available too. I can't say like how many doctors are actually using them, but I do know a couple of companies that are heavily involved in depression and anxiety medication. So that's a huge thing, right? And it's a black hole because again, your body and the way you react to things, and they're calling it anxiety and depression, but what is it really? Nobody knows. There's so many levels and variations. And so just getting in and looking at your DNA can really help you. And I don't know if you want this kind of technical information, but
Yeah, go ahead.
So you have this piece of DNA, right? And it's like supposed to interact with this drug, right? So like what the drug does is it comes in and it like turns on like certain like serotonin, like in your brain, right? To like make you produce more serotonin because you're not producing enough, which can help with the depression, right? And so the drug comes in and there's this gene that you have that produces serotonin. So the drug is supposed to come in and like sit down and be like, make more copies of this, right?
Right.
Make more copies of this, but it has to fit just right. And so understanding what your little like seat looks like right before the gene, it's called a promoter region, to understand like, what does that look like for you? Then we can pick the right drug that sits right there. It attaches strongly, right? There's not like this, because like it can attach partway and then it's kind of like flailing off and it's like, hey, produce more, right? But if it's like sitting down hardcore on that region, then it just like shoom, and it's making more, right? And so that's a lot of what the DNA involvement is what is your sequence in that seat, in that promoter region. And then we can make sure, and if we don't already have a drug that fits there, they can make one. That's the cool thing, right?
Wow.
Your promoter gene looks like this. We're going to make a drug with that seat, so it'll come and stick there and run. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And they're already doing that, or are we talking maybe in the future?
Well, they can already do it. I don't know how much is already being done. I mean, the reality is most of the time, a drug that's already been developed is going to do well enough. In the region. But if we got good enough, or it was cheap enough or easy enough, then yes, you can produce a drug that has that specific sequence. It's not hard, right? It's just cost effective for a company to do that for you,
Yeah. That's amazing. Can you imagine that? Just, your own your own drug for your own problem that works specifically for you. I think that's fabulous. That is just, that's amazing to me that that's even a possibility. I think about people, I do know people that have different anxieties or, whatever it can be. And they go through, try this one, now try this one, now try this one. And,
and then they stop working like after a year, right? And then you have to try another one. And it's so hard. So hard. And so many people are struggling with it now. So, and it's good in that means that companies will be motivated to put more research dollars into this particular problem, right? Sure. It's really unfortunate when you have some really obscure disease because nobody's researching.
Nobody's doing anything about it. Yeah. So interesting. There's so many things, a lot of people think DNA, we're going to either catch a killer or we're going to find out that we're really from Scotland and not from, wherever. So from Germany or whatever the commercial was saying. But there's so much more depth to it than just that. And I think that's what this PBS show that you did, I think that's what it's showing examples of, is all the different ways that DNA can help. And I'm hoping too that as people watch it, they won't be so afraid of DNA. Yeah, because there are people that are just really afraid. No, Melissa, I'm not saying that
No, I'm not. No, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of it. No.
That's not what I mean.
Yeah.
But there are people that are afraid of it. I do repatriation work and trying to get people to agree to take a DNA test for the Army, just so that they can, identify soldiers. And some people just get so upset. So I almost want to say, okay, go to PBS and watch and you will see all the good things that DNA can do. And so you will be okay if you take this DNA test to identify the soldier. That's all they're going to do with that. So, but
yeah, I think it's not even, I mean, I'm hoping what the impact of the show is even beyond DNA, but it's just about family, right?
Oh, yeah.
How important it is for us to connect with family
Sure.
that are really closely related to us and people that are distantly related to us.
Mhm.
How we gain strength and identity from understanding and connecting with these relationships. I just think it's really powerful. And I hope that people that watch it feel a little bit of encouragement to go take a look at their family tree and go ask their grandma or their cousin, hey, what was that story? And write it down. And, there's just so many action items, I think, from this show. I just hope that people watch it and they feel motivated to just start doing something small, to document their family.
I see DNA as a tool in a toolbox, whether you're a genealogist or just someone you're interested in your family history. I was actually in a conversation the other day with a group of people that we were talking about other countries and the fact that some countries don't allow or even have outlawed DNA testing. And one of the countries that came up was France. My father, from my father's side, my maiden name is a French name, and I've been able to trace it through documents back to the 1600s. My 8th great grandfather was born on the Jersey Isles off the coast of France. But so I find it interesting that, and a lot of people, I don't know if you've heard this, but they call it the DNA craze an American thing. But, I think it would be great if, a lot of these other countries would open up and allow it.
Yeah, I agree. And that's going to speak to these underrepresented populations that we're trying to get tested.
Yes.
I think it's interesting. I mean, Ancestry until really recently was only selling in just a handful of countries. And so, and they're the biggest marketing budget, out there. MyHeritage has been selling in every country for years. And so I think they have a little bit better international representation than Ancestry does in their database. But I think it is thought of as a thing that Americans do because we know we're not from here.
Right.
So we're looking for that place where we're from. The ironic thing is that people in Europe actually aren't from there either.
That's very true.
And so it's really testing is really ramping up in South America. South America is very much like North America. They're from somewhere else too. Brazil is huge, right? European influence in immigrant populations, and Argentina. And so there's a lot of new activity down there. And so I think a lot of the marketing dollars from our companies are going to be pushed into South America to try to get some of that business. There's a couple of South American DNA testing companies. I don't know them or how well they're doing. I've just browsed their website using Google Translate. So I don't know, but it's, I mean, it shows that there's a market for it too, in their own language. So yeah, it's slowly spreading, I feel like. And I think the more people understand that it's not even just about your 3 times great grandfather or whatever, but it's about yourself, right? It's about your identity and understanding who you are. And that's the piece of it.
I would think, what do you think in the future? I would think that the health aspects that we've discussed here would be a great incentive for a lot of countries to allow for their citizens, to get that information about that drug they're sensitive to, or to find that gene that they may be susceptible to breast cancer or something. It seems to me that would be a great catalyst for allowing such testing.
Well, you'd think so, but again, health testing here has not been successful as far as I've seen, because our testing companies are not still offering it. There's also that flip side to if you find out you have a predisposition for Parkinson's, then what are the laws for your insurance company? Like here in the United
That's
States,
true.
we have some protections, but not complete protections, but we do have some protections against your insurance company denying you your access, because I mean, really, they can do their own DNA test, right? A lot of insurance companies make you take a blood test before you can even get it, right? And so it's not like a new thing, but we do have some protections, but not all countries do. And so before they could do that, they'd want to have those protections in place. So it's kind of a bureaucratic mess first, I feel like. So that's the other piece.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. It was a great show to watch. I loved all the stories. I really did.
I hope there's more on the horizon.
Yeah. That the stories were absolutely wonderful. Now tell people, if they haven't seen it, how they can find it. Just go to their local PBS channel.
Go to your local PBS channel. You can search their listings for Your DNA Secrets Revealed, but you can also watch it through the PBS app. If you're a subscriber, I don't remember what they call it now.
Passport.
Passport. Thank you. Yes. I was like, I have it. What is it called? The PBS Passport. It's on there now, so you can just go watch it on demand.
Wonderful. Well, I hope, like Melissa said, that this leads to more, because I mean, just watching the stories was so, just heartwarming to see all the positive that came from these DNA tests, and like I said, the many ways DNA can help us, not just finding out that what country we're from, but or what country we have DNA from, but there's just so many different ways that DNA can be used, and I loved watching the talking about the future and what DNA may be able to help us with in the future. So we are so grateful that you came on and talked to us. We encourage people to go to your local PBS channel and find it and watch it. And
then donate to your PBS station.
And donate, absolutely. And we would love to see in the comments, as you watch, have you taken a DNA test, and what kind of things have you been finding? How has DNA helped you? We'd love to hear that. So with that, we will say goodnight, and we will see you next time on GenFriends. Diane, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.